Hello and welcome back. Many of you have heard the saying, history is just that, his story. The education many blacks received in American schooling was very much whitewashed. What we learned about slavery, these slaves came over on the ships and picked cotton, and then Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves with the Emancipation Proclamation. Okay, fine. Right now, there is so much attention being put on the history of blacks in this country, specifically with this being June the 19th. Many of the most unexpected of places are acknowledging Juneteenth. What is Juneteenth, you may ask? So I referenced the Emancipation Proclamation, 1863. 2 years later, 1865, the Union soldiers went into Texas to give them the word that the slaves are now free. News apparently traveled very slowly during those times, quite obviously, and the slaves were just busy picking their cotton and being whipped and raped and abused by their slave masters with no knowledge of what was happening throughout the rest of the South. Hence, Juneteenth, the official day, the exact day back in 1865 when the last of the slaves supposedly were set free. So, to my knowledge, in doing some Google searches, there's not a lot of information on what to do to so-called celebrate Juneteenth. But what I want to give you today are some of my suggestions on what you can do, not so much in the way of celebration, but more so to acknowledge your ancestors who went through all that they went through so that you, as a Black person, could be here living in a so-called free existence. Welcome back to Say Yes to You. On this channel, I really do love talking about things related to spirituality, acknowledging our very much human existence here on earth, and finding a way to bridge the gap that does exist between our human form and our spiritual side. So, when I was in the shower this morning, I was really thinking about what Juneteenth could potentially symbolize. What does it mean for me? Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I have the background of being a Caribbean American. When I'm out in the world, quite clearly, I am a Black person. Growing up in my household and hearing the parents of my friends talking and just being in the environment that I grew up in, what I could very clearly see is that there was, and I would say is, a distinction amongst different kinds of Blacks. I recently learned of the ADOS movement, the descendants of slaves, the American descendants of slaves. So that's really going to be the true, like the name implies, descendant of the people who were here during the slavery times. There are others of us whose families came to America through the process of immigration, legal, illegal, whatever. So the experience of the people who represent themselves as ADOS is very much tied into Juneteenth and the celebration acknowledgement of Juneteenth. Again, when I'm in the world, I am a Black person. We're all Black. So to me, it's very beautiful to see all of the varieties, all the flavors of Black people coming together behind this one cause, which is Black Lives Matter, which is Stop Killing Us, which is we have the right to be here. So back to Juneteenth and its celebration. Regardless of what you may think about the experience of slaves, and what I'm referring to specifically is there is a thing of slavery deniers, much like there are Holocaust deniers. There are people who are slavery deniers. There are people who, I find it to be very hateful, very ignorant, but there are people who would seek to suggest that the experiences of slaves was something less than horrific, something less than inhumane, something less than brutal. Specifically, I remember in 2018, Kanye West was on TMZ, and he made the statement that slavery, what did he say? Slavery was a choice. He told one of the anchors there that slavery was a choice. Regardless of where you fall in that debate, The experience of the slaves was the experience of the slaves. What I plan to use as my thumbnail is the image of whipped slave Peter, which is in the public domain. And it's an escaped slave named Peter who escaped, and then he later joined the Union to fight against the Confederates. And as the story goes, when they saw the scarring that he had on his body, it really gave the Union soldiers a better idea. It was right in their faces, a better idea of exactly what the experience of these slaves was, which is again inhumane. And on a side note, Will Smith apparently is going to be doing a slave movie where he is showing us what Peter the slave went through on his 10 or 12-day journey striving for his freedom. And it sounds quite fascinating, actually. So what I think we can do to give acknowledgement to our ancestors, maybe put in the category of Juneteenth, but really acknowledgement of the ancestors. So what I would say is, one thing that I'm going to talk about things we can do internally, spiritually, and things that we can do in the world. Things that we can do in the world would include buying black, supporting your fellow black business owners or black business owners. Short of that, what you can do is extend a kind word, a kind gesture towards your fellow black person. There's that saying, all skin folk are not your kinfolk. Again, going back, there are different kinds of black people. There are different kinds of black people culturally, and there are different kinds of black people socially. Chris Rock famously made a joke about the difference between a black person and I won't say the word, but an N-word. So we all understand that there are different kinds of black people. What I would say is, extend a kind word, extend a kind gesture, because this person really and truly is your brother or sister. I'm not sure about the timing of the posting of a video that I have about black women and our experience as black women here in the United States, and the feeling of vulnerability and fear from lack of protection from the black man. That's a whole other issue. What I'm saying is, yes, we're giving acknowledgement to our feelings on that subject, but without compromising yourself as a black woman, I would say extend a kind word to another black woman, another black man, but really do whatever you feel is appropriate to reach out, okay? So there's the buying black, there's the extending the kind word or gesture to a fellow black person in support of black people as a whole. Now, what really excites me, what I really wanted to talk about, was the idea of giving acknowledgement and praise for our ancestors. Whether or not you are a black American of African descent here, whether or not your family came from some country on the continent of Africa or from the Caribbean, whatever, really we all came from the same place. Actually, all of humanity, right? All of humanity came out of the motherland, which is Africa. Okay, fine. What I am suggesting you do in acknowledgement of your ancestors is, if you are not really a spiritual person, I would say on the low tier would be something as simple as taking a moment of silence just to give acknowledgement to your ancestors who fought that fight for you, for all of us, actually. Take a moment of silence and just give acknowledgement, give gratitude for them doing what they did so that you can have this experience, so that you could be here to fight. That's on the low end. Another thing that is a little more involved spiritually, I would say, is go into a meditation. Get yourself a candle or not, but go into a true meditation where you are considering what your ancestors sacrificed so that you could be here. Okay? Thirdly, in addition to the meditation, what I would say, what really excited me at the prospect was ancestor money. You may or may not be familiar with ancestor money, the purpose of ancestor money. I would say look into it. It's a thing. But get yourself some ancestor money. And then also go ahead, and I have two different kinds here. Ancestor money is also known as joss paper. If you live in a multicultural area, you can go into an Asian market and find some joss paper, or you can order online. I believe that the ancestor money I have here was purchased through, there's a gentleman here on YouTube called S. Ali Myers. He has a metaphysical store. I've ordered the ancestor money from him and ordered some crystals as well that are I found to be very powerful. S. Ali Myers here on YouTube. But get yourself some ancestor money. And it's as the name suggests, okay? There is more to the to our existence than, here on this physical plane at this particular moment in time. Even though all time is now, there's no such thing as time, okay, fine. But the people who were in human form back then, the soul, the spirit continues to travel to make their passes easier, to make their passage more delightful for them, for whatever their needs may be, wherever they are. What you can do is burn some ancestor money for them. That's what I would say. That's how I choose to acknowledge this Juneteenth. That's how I choose to acknowledge the ancestors who were here doing the heavy lifting for us. Some people may feel like the police brutality, the Black Lives Matter movement, what's happening with the very real loss of life at the hands of the police is more heavy lifting. I would say, it's in my opinion, that what the slaves did for us, for you, was really and truly the heavy lifting. Now it's time for those of us who are on the earth plane still to do our part. Really and truly, they did the heavy lifting for us. And as an aside, I just want to say, do yourself a favor and look up slave patrols. You can, if you so choose, you can draw a direct line between slave patrols and policing as we know it today. One of my teachers says words don't teach. It would be very easy for me to come and start talking about slave patrol, but I would challenge anyone looking at this video to do your own research. Do your own research, have your own feelings be stimulated by what you read and see, so that you can really understand what I believe is truly in the hearts of these white police officers who are choosing to brutalize and or kill Black men and women. Okay, so that's good. I got through this. It is very emotional. It is very emotional when you actually take a moment and consider what Black people continue to go through today, and what our ancestors, what the slaves went through in their time. It's really something else. So that's the end of my video. That's what I really wanted to come and talk about, acknowledgement and praise for the ancestors on this day, as opposed to something more commercial, days off from work, or whatever the mainstream I feel is trying to pander to get you to buy into. Use your better judgment, use your third eye. You can see what's happening between companies who are truly aligned with Black people in their cause today and those who are simply pandering. Okay, so if you like this video, do go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Leave me a comment. I want to know, what are you doing to acknowledge your ancestors during this time? What, if anything, are you doing to acknowledge the ancestors during this time? Okay, do go ahead and leave me a comment. And until next time, bye-bye.